real good guy. And I'm going to hand it over to Andrew.
All right. I'm going to post a link in the chat. And I'd like you all to go there and click on the orange button that says register for the raffle. We'll be having as part of this talk, we're going to have a raffle for an Alexa Echo device. That reminds me, I should turn off my Alexa.
Alexa, play rock and roll.
No. So if you go there and use the chatbot, part of the talk will be covering how I built the chatbot. And I'll make references a lot to some of the ideas that I was thinking about when I built the chatbot. It's just a simple chatbot, but it's really helpful for describing not only the various technologies in AWS and Lex, but also for framing the beginning of the talk, which is going to be more generally about kind of chatbots and conversational agents and why I think that they're really significant right now. So let me start sharing my screen. Actually, we only have 12 people here. We should have around 50 or more. Karen, did you have your folks come to this stream? To the meeting?
Yeah. Everyone who reserved a seat for this event from one of our groups, we have actually 3 groups joining for today's event, and also your group with John. Everyone should have ability to see it in the properties of the event. So once you reserve the seat, you go to the properties of the event and you can just see it there. Because I'm telling it right now because we have 9 people in the YouTube stream, so you can actually also join this event in Google Meet on this occasion.
Okay. All right, let me start this.
Yeah, John, by the way, all the new people who will be joining right now, you have to admit them because they are not in the invite list, in their emails at least.
Yep.
So every single one have to be admitted to the call.
Yeah, I've been admitting everybody to the call and got that going.
That's great. Thank you.
Hey, Isabel and Thomas and Franklin, come here for a second. Come here real quick. Real quick. Come here real quick. I'll introduce you to my family, folks. Come here. Come here.
On.
Come here and say hello while they're getting ready. Come here. Come here. Thomas, Franklin, come here. This is my daughter-in-law. This is my oldest son right here. That's my oldest son, and this is my youngest son. You're on that camera there. And that's my dog. So the Davises. Andrew, it's on you, man.
Yes. I need to give Google Meet access to my screen here. I'm sorry.
All right. All right. Thank you for the tip on YouTube streaming, Karen. I'll do this for the GCP next time because this is good. This way I don't have to actually record the meeting and then download it and then upload it. I can just do it in one step. So 10 a.m. on Tuesday, 10 a.m. on Sundays, we do GCP. 1 p.m. on Sundays, we do AWS. Every week we do a lesson.
What are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. I see your screen. I will get rid of this. How do I get rid of all the people on the right? I think that's as good as we're going to be able to do for sharing. We'll figure out the OBS stuff later.
Okay, let me reiterate to all of you that are streaming on YouTube. If you go to metachat.io, which is just a little website that I stood up, you can click here to register for the raffle, and that will launch a chatbot, an AWS Lex chatbot that can be used to register for the raffle. And you can also look at pictures of dogs if you want, if you don't want to register. All right, let's start. So this, I said earlier, this is a two-part talk. In the first part, which will be probably about 25 minutes, I'll discuss kind of the historical context of chatbots and why I think it's really such an exciting time for them. And in the second part, I'll discuss the Raffle bot and how it uses AWS Lex, as well as other products within the AWS portfolio to create what techniques that I think are kind of critical to creating unique and effective chatbots. So first, a little bit about me. I'm a software developer and Lex enthusiast, I guess I'll say for this talk, in Durham, North Carolina, in the US. I work in the healthcare field at a university here, and I run that little MetaChat site, which is really just a collection of my talks and ideas about conversational agents. Previously, in other states and universities, I was the software architect and programmer for numerous, basically research software, digital humanities related software projects. And I got my start back at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications in Illinois, in a group that was doing machine learning and data mining back then. So I also actually have a background in art and technology, which really got me involved with interaction design, immersive art experiences, if that means anything to you. As early as my undergraduate days, and a couple of years later in grad school, I was designing and teaching programming courses to art students, and there weren't usually curriculums for such a thing back then. So my passion for conversational agents is really ignited recently by a serious health condition I experienced, which I felt really highlighted to me the numerous ways that they could have been used to improve my experience as a patient, like to shorten the amount of time it took me to get care that I needed, to match me with the right doctors. So not just conversational agents. Recently, audio on. Health condition I experienced, which I felt really highlighted to me the numerous ways that they could have been used to improve my experience as a patient, to shorten the amount of time it took me to get care that I needed. Thank you. So I also think there's tremendous opportunity in other sectors, not just healthcare, to really improve people's lives with creative conversational agents. And a good chatbot takes a lot of thoughtful planning and programming and elbow grease, but I think AWS does a really great job of providing really all that there's needed in terms of services, software services to put these things together. So this is a question that I have for all of you, because I'm not sure the range of experience that you all have really with chatbots or with Lex or with AWS for that matter. John's been doing all these great tutorials for the last few weeks, and of course y'all work with Karen, but it's hard to know with only 16 people in this stream and people watching other places, what exactly your experience is. So I'm going to kind of assume a little less knowledge than maybe you have, but if I'm saying too much, just let me know in the chat, or if you have ideas, just go ahead and post it in the chat. And if you're on YouTube, come to the Google Meet and post your ideas in the chat. So for those of you that don't know, Lex is an AWS product that can be used to rapidly build conversational interfaces, agents, chatbots, voice bots. There's various names for these things. So I'm really curious, like why you are here. Like why are you interested in Lex and chatbots? I'm really curious, and I'd love to, again, if you post it in the chat. So 20 years ago, I was making these immersive art installations about Alan Turing, who first postulated the idea about chatbots. He didn't call them chatbots back then. He used them as kind of a thought experiment about artificial intelligence, but he clearly articulated them. And so about a year ago, I was given a project by my employer, a chatbot project, and I started kind of looking closely at the landscape of technologies, the very vast landscape of technologies and activity that is going on in this space. And really, when I was first assigned the project, I thought chatbots were kind of a fad, kind of these annoying little things that popped up on my screen, and I kind of tried to dismiss. But as I've studied the technology and kind of connected it back to what I was thinking about a long time ago, I really realized that there's a lot of potential here that's not being leveraged. So the fact that they're gaining so much attention, I mean, they kind of reached peak hype in 2015. And the hype has been dying down since then, but they're starting to ramp up again, especially with the COVID pandemic. That's also reignited the interest in chatbots that kind of started to wane after 2015. But the fact that they're gaining so much attention and capital investment right now is, I think, really telling us something important about where we are, like in civilization and in society. And my theory is that it's kind of the convergence of two things. The first being the ubiquity and simplicity of the chat user interface pattern. So the word chat and bot is a conjunction, right, or a compound word of chat and bot, and they're really two separate things. Chat is the user interface pattern, and bot is the code implementation on the. It's a bot service, right? It's just code. So there's that, the ubiquity and simplicity of the chat UI pattern. The second item that I feel like is converging is the maturity of the technologies to affordably build these things. To realize what was really just a fantasy of computing pioneers such as Alan Turing. By the way, here he is. Of Alan Turing just 70 years ago. So this is the cockpit of 1970 Concorde supersonic passenger jet. A cockpit is the user interface for the pilot to fly and land the plane. And the Concorde cockpit design is really regarded as probably the most complicated cockpit to have ever existed. It came with a 1,900-page manual on how to use it. And I think, not for us, but I think for many people, living life today is a lot like living in the cockpit of a Concorde. Like, which fucking button lands this thing? And if I turn this dial, will someone steal my identity and ruin my credit score, right? So it's like, what does this do? So as far as our apps and websites go, the user interface changes are really accelerating. I mean, just the change is built into our development processes, continuous integration. The stuff that's built and deployed, it's automatically fired up on the website. No manual is updated anywhere. It's kind of up to the users to figure it out. So the users, the moment you get comfortable with an app, the company decides to redesign, and you kind of lost that investment a little bit. For us, we've learned how to quickly adapt. We're not fazed by the constant change, but it scares a lot of people, like my parents probably, or older folks, or people that aren't as engaged with tech as we are. And they want something simpler. They're looking for something simpler and more predictable to get things done. Just like this year has been nuts. Access to news and information that we have now is greater than ever. And in 2020, there's certainly been a lot of news and information to process, but it's reached a point, I think, indicative by this Pew Research study that it's really detrimental for a lot of people, taking toll on mental health. And the time that's required to really read information, to process it, to fact check it, to consider alternative views and think critically about it has become overwhelming. And the volume of information is itself being used as a weapon to neutralize critical thought and analysis, because we just don't have time to do it. So the U.S. barely noticed that our president was being impeached because there was just too much information. People are feeling overwhelmed. So this period of technological change during the latter part of 1800s and the early 1900s was also very dramatic and overwhelming. And by the way, these ideas right here come from a Donald Norman book called The Invisible Computer. And anyway, it was dramatic and overwhelming, and it added to many the complexities in people's lives because they were so new and immature. And they broke easily. They were kind of hard to operate at times, like radios and telegraphs and telephones. When these things first came out, they were not standardized, and they broke easily, and they hadn't been refined in market for very long. But they went through many iterations, and they improved and standardized. So this is an advertisement from 1950 on how to use the telephone. And by this point, the phones had become much easier to use because their design was essentially standardized. This is the Apple Human Interface Guideline Manual. It's a 410-page standards and guidelines manual from 1987 for creating applications for the Mac. And the designers of the Mac were really trying to learn the lessons, I think, of the Industrial Revolution by implementing standards up front. And this gave Mac app developers, a detailed set of instructions, guidelines to follow, so that their apps behaved and looked like other Mac apps, and thus were more usable and consistent because of it. So users could invest time in learning app A and then apply what they learned to app B. Like the skills were translatable. If you are interested in user interface and user experience, I think a lot of the really groundbreaking thought and research took place in the early to mid 1980s, and a lot of it went into the Mac UI. So unfortunately, a lot of it's been lost in the current Mac UI. But so I say do yourself a favor if you're interested in this stuff and pick up the manual and just go to the bibliography. I mean, it's a who's who of people that did really groundbreaking research. Like Donald Norman, The Design of Everyday Things, and Brenda Laurel, I'm a huge fan of, who talks about computers and interactive experiences as theater. It's very influential for me. So not only was the original Mac UI really innovative, it also provided this pleasant user experience that still enjoys a loyal following. So I think Apple ignored the business community, and what that turned out to be a near fatal decision. And everyone knows that Microsoft really trounced the Mac with Windows, even though you could argue it offered fewer standards and more of a stunted user experience when it first came out. So, and then the web happened, and then smartphones happened, and the standard UI really was just a dream. And so we have now this situation where the web and smartphone apps, and it's kind of the Wild West, where there have been no standards. They're starting to emerge again, but they're being inconsistently applied. So on the one hand, having no standards has been, I think, great for innovation, because it has allowed for a lot of failure. And we've learned a lot about what users like and don't like, what works and doesn't work. But I think you could also argue that at this point, we've reached a point of kind of peak complexity where people are just ready to simplify. This idea of design systems, where you kind of have these off-the-shelf components that you pull and drag into your user interface, is becoming very popular. And many websites are starting to look similar now. And then there's artificial intelligence and chatbots. These can be used to summarize, vast quantities of information to make sense out of all the noise. And there's just so much data to be generated. So much data being generated that no human could really ever make sense of it. And we need these technologies to help us. I think a lot of people are also contending with environments in which they're required to use not only the latest and greatest, but also the older technologies. Like in my workplace, I use Slack and email, even though I think email is such an antiquated technology. And that kind of adds to the complexity. This is the first SMS patent for threaded SMS messages. The first SMS message was sent from a software application to a human in 1992. Human-to-human SMS messaging was made commercially available in 1993. This is a patent filed by Research in Motion in the year 2000. So quite a few years elapsed there. And Research in Motion, of course, was the inventor of the once ubiquitous BlackBerry. And one thing that made it so successful, getting the nickname Crackberry, was their chat technology. So this patent describes, like I said, the user interface for viewing one or more SMS messages on a wireless device. And it kind of quietly set off this revolution that's still unfolding and is dovetailing in with, I think, chatbots and other messaging platforms. So I don't have really up-to-the-date statistics on this, but as of 2017, I could find that there was 23 billion SMS messages being sent a day worldwide. And when you include, and that number is starting to go down because of all the proprietary messaging technologies that are being developed. So like Messenger, WeChat, WhatsApp, all these are proprietary protocols that are not done over telephone networks. But when those are factored into the picture, the number of messages being sent a day is somewhere between 150 and 200 billion a day, which is crazy. So this patent was really the first to establish what has become this universally understood, has evolved into this universally understood visual representation of a chat. And this evolution is now kind of the de facto standard and the preferred mode of conducting electronic conversations for personal use and for commerce. People don't even think of it as an innovation anymore. It's just like air. It's just ubiquitous. But it's pretty powerful. So in the abstract, it's just a bunch of back and forth bubbles, But what makes it such a good metaphor is that it's standard. Almost all chats use this pattern now. It's immediately recognizable. Like you could stand across the room, 20, 30 feet away, and you saw this, and you would know what it was. It's simple. We know how to use it. It connects with what we learned when we were, small infants. Conversation. It's a back and forth. It's central to our experience as humans. I think that's why even if the chat UI fades in ubiquity, as voice interfaces improve and become more ubiquitous, I think the chat UI is still here to stay when you need a visual representation. So here are two user interfaces for collecting the same Raffle information that you entered with the Raffle bot. So it's first name, last name, email, and phone. Personally, I choose the one on the left, like every single time. And I would guess most people here would as well. It's so much more efficient, but many would prefer the chat UI on the right, although it takes much longer for us to complete, and it's probably kind of cumbersome for us. It does have its hidden advantages though. So let's compare the two. The traditional form on the left is static. It just sits there and you fill in the information. It's linear. You go first name, top to bottom. It's text only. So you can't speak into the first name field, although I guess if you have accessibility features on your computer, you can, but it's not built into the software of the application. And it's also finite, meaning once you fill this out, boom, the experience is over. The chat UI is responsive. It's a give and take. It's a conversation. It's multimodal. You can submit text, voice, image, or other natural interactions. I'm not speaking specifically about this particular chatbot interface. I'm meaning like in general, you could design a chatbot now to do these things. So it's multimodal, meaning you can submit more than just text. You can click on the recording button and it'll submit voice, and the voice will be processed by the bot service. You can submit images or other natural interactions, button clicks. If you have custom UI widgets, the user could interact with those and provide like a natural intent and a natural interaction, if you will, in that way. And I think most importantly, it's potentially a continuous experience, meaning in this context on the web, yes, you close it and it would be over, I guess. But if it was on your phone, or if you came back to the website and the website restored your chat from memory, it could continue forever. I mean, with the traditional form, once you submit the information, the interaction context is lost. Whereas with the chat UI, it could be an ongoing conversation you have with whatever organization you're interacting with. You probably have years of chat records with family members. Like I have probably 15 years of, well, no, probably 10 years of chat records with my family. Why not have 10 years of chat records with your doctor or your bank or your favorite brands? Because chatbots can remember what you were doing and can always come back to you with that context and guide you through new interactions that cross channels. So you could start on your phone using a keyboard, and then you could get busy and need to leave the house and you transfer over to your car, and the whole conversation essentially changes over. But then instead of interacting via your chatbot, you're interacting via your voice. And I think the full realization of a lot of the stuff I'm saying is quite a ways off, but I think these things will gradually start to happen as conversational interfaces become even more kind of like air. So we've been talking about the chat UI. Here's some other popular conversational agents if you kind of don't know what I'm talking about when I say that. So there's the Alexa device, which uses speech input. Over 100 million of these things have been sold. There are users actively purchasing these. I don't think they're very sophisticated yet. I have several of them, but they're clunky as hell. But that could be more of a factor of the people that are developing the applications for them and not the device itself. I'm not totally sure. I've not developed a skill for them yet, but you can compile your Lex chatbots for Alexa.
Hey, Andrew, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
So regarding Alexa, there's some Alexa labs on Quick Labs, and at one point in time, we were scheduled to do some Alexa stuff. We need to get back to that and build some Alexa skills.
That'd be great. I'd love to do that.
All right, we'll do that.
I really need a driver,
Yep,
so
we'll do that next week. We'll do that for the next lab then.
Okay.
All right, thanks so much. Go ahead.
So now I'm going to talk about a little bit about multimodality, because I referenced, being able to submit text or image or any kind of media. So really effective chatbots, really creative chatbots, I think, do utilize multiple modalities for both input and output. They can really create these rich experiences. And I kind of think of all these as natural languages. I don't view natural language as constrained to just the written or the spoken word. That's the way our NLP and NLU algorithms work right now. But I think more and more our chats are incorporating image and custom interactions as kind of natural languages as well. Again, my chat logs from 10 years ago look radically different from my recent ones. There's a lot more images, and there's liberal use now of. I was looking at recent ones with my girlfriend, and there's liberal use of emoji instead of the written word. So images are really a natural language that our algorithms will, I think, need to deal with in the not too distant future. They probably are already in research labs. So if you think I'm like stretching the truth about this, if you're dubious that image is really a natural language, look no further than the Oxford English Dictionary 2015 word of the year. It's not a word, it's an emoji. It's laughing with tears of joy. This was their word of the year. And it's really, I think, indicative of how much written language images are starting to replace the written word with. They're convenient, they're fun, they're efficient, and they're images. So what makes for a good chatbot? I think there aren't many good examples of great chatbots. I don't think I built one yet. I hope to someday, but the chatbot manufacturers and tutorials will tell you it takes 15 minutes to build one. It's super easy, blah, blah, blah. If you go this route, your customers will ignore it and they'll go elsewhere. No one will care. But I have used a few that have really been helpful, and I've been really thankful that the developers took the time to really invest in making my life easier. So I think good chatbots realize the dreams of not only the AI pioneers, such as Alan Turing, they also realize the dreams of the UI pioneers, such as Brenda Laurel or Tagnazzi, or I always have a hard time pronouncing his name, Tog for short, and Ben Schneiderman. So the biggest contributing factor, though, is really to build great chatbots, I think, is empathy. Can you put yourself into the mind of your target user and anticipate how they will interpret and respond to the interactions with your chatbot? If you can do that, you'll really simplify their life, and they will remember it, and they'll return to you again and again. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, I'm a developer. I don't need to think about empathy. But if your user is not an actual end user, if your user is me, another developer, you're working on a different kind of interface potentially. You're working on a programming interface. You still have to empathize with me. How will I interact with that interface? But if you're working on the bigger picture aspect of the chatbot, really all aspects of that need empathy. So in the conversation design, like the words you use, the cadence you use, the bot persona, what imagery is used, how responsive is the bot, how much do you keep the user in contact with what's going on, etc. It just goes really on and on. So here's a few tips for what I think create for really empathic chatbots. People appreciate it when you save them time. So do things faster than what it would take if they called a call center. If I'm calling my healthcare call center and it takes me 20 minutes to get someone that knows what I'm talking about, it'll make a big difference in my life if a chatbot can get me right to the knowledge or the person that I need. Along these lines, keep your messages short. People don't like to read anymore. There's too much information. Don't flood them with paragraphs of text. 90 characters or less, I've read, is kind of ideal, and I think that's a good rule of thumb. Provide quick responses. If you spawned off a process or kind of asynchronous thing and it's taken a while to process, let the user know that we're still working on your request. Don't leave them hanging, otherwise they'll close the window and leave and go somewhere else. This is super important. Hand off to a human when needed. When you know the chatbot isn't going to do what the user wants, hand it off to a human. AI isn't good enough yet. We're always going to need human assistance. So the second thing is don't deceive your users. People don't like being deceived. Tell them that the bot is virtual, that it's not a real human. Be transparent about what the bot knows. Don't claim it's general AI. General AI doesn't exist yet. And probably won't for a long time. Looks like I kind of run short on time, so I may have to skip this section where I was going to talk about that. But give clues, with buttons or examples in your UI of things that the user could say. Give clues in buttons. What things does this chatbot know? People like to be guided. These are complex interactions. So keep your users on a path toward what they're trying to do with buttons and UI elements. Don't let them kind of stray off too far into an area where they're going to get confused and frustrated. Provide an easy way for them to reorient themselves. Don't take them through this big, decision tree where they get to the leaf node in the tree and they can't get back to the beginning. Communicate context when possible. Remind people what the bot remembers about the interaction. People also really appreciate when you're sensitive to what they're going through. So as a healthcare patient, I was, not always pleased with the way I was treated in that context. So when crafting interactions for your bot, carefully consider, what brought the user there and adjust the tone and the persona of the bot accordingly. This is the section that I was going to talk about the different kinds of AI, but I'm going to skip that. So there's a lot of hype right now around chatbots, but there's various technologies involved here, like speech recognition, virtual assistants, natural language processing and understanding, chatbots. This is a Gartner hype curve, which you've probably all seen, where you have like some kind of innovation trigger, and then people get really excited about it, and then people think it's garbage down here, and then finally people start to actually do something useful with it. So you can see speech recognition was really hyped up, and then now it's starting to be useful, remarkably, even though machines don't know what the hell you're talking about, really. They don't understand anything, but they're doing a pretty good job of recognizing what you're saying, even if they don't understand what the words mean when put together. But like virtual assistants, I think chatbots are probably more like down here. Like they're really starting, I think, maybe on their path to this slope of enlightenment. And that's what makes it really exciting and interesting, is because now they're well understood, and we can start to do interesting things with them, really effective things. And the truth of the matter is, to do amazing things with chatbots. It's simply not needed. The stuff you have with Lex, you can build really helpful, life-changing chatbots. So that's the first part of the talk, and I want to take a 5-minute break and read the comments in the chat. So let's all go to the concession area, and I'll provide free drinks and caviar and other finger foods. I'm gonna grab a drink too here. So John, you're having trouble loading the site?
Looked like somebody had problems loading the site. I think maybe his time was out of sync, and he got that right. Was that correct? Whoever that was, Meharry TVs?
Is the chatbot not working?
He said he searched online, and it was a common issue caused by one system's configuration being out of sync. He looked like he fixed it by getting his time up to date. He ran NTP.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Time protocol daemon.
All right, cool. So I'll be back in just a couple minutes. I'm going to grab a drink.
All right. We'll just chit chat. Anybody? Welcome to the AWS weekly study session. which is live streamed by Karen's Cloud Study Network. Every Sunday at 1 p.m. EDT, we do a weekly study session where we spend 2 hours doing AWS labs. We're an official AWS users group now, and we have a GCP user group that meets also weekly Sundays at 10 a.m. And same thing, we do labs. In the AWS labs, we did a bunch of Lex labs in preparation for this talk. And we've been recently doing Lambda, and then we did like some IAM permissions labs. And then in GCP, we're doing a lot of Kubernetes right now because the Google Associate Cloud Engineer exam has a lot of Kubernetes in it. I'm more familiar with GCP than AWS. I have worked with AWS in the past, but I'm trying to build up skills in AWS. And you kind of see when you do things with both of them, a lot of the stuff is the same. It's just different syntax and different UI. And there on the stream, you can see that Karen has his recording there. Karen was nice enough to show me how to get this set up, streaming as well, so that we can record this. I do it on John F. Davis on YouTube, whatever. We'll see. It did see if it's there. Karen, you have anything you want to say?
Did you say my name? I'm sorry.
Karen, do you have anything?
Oh, Karen.
Andrew, do you have anything else you want to say? You've been talking a lot. I'll go off of mute and hand it back over to you.
I wonder if anybody has any questions, whether it's on the YouTube stream or here in our group. I kind of covered a lot of ground and didn't ask for questions. No? All right. So let's talk about Lex and Friends. The title of the talk is not only about this idea of empathy and working together to create these great experiences, but it's also about Lex and its friends, so to speak, because there's just a myriad of AWS services that you can cobble together to create these wonderful chatbots. And realize though that AWS is not the only game in town for building conversational agents. There are, all the cloud vendors have their own frameworks. Like Microsoft has a pretty nice one actually, but there are some downsides, and the bigger picture, the larger array of services keep me on AWS. Oracle I haven't really used, but I'm always a little bit hesitant on Oracle's technologies. Dialogflow I think is probably really fantastic, especially for simpler chatbots. And Rasa is a framework that it gives you a lot of power. I haven't used it yet, but I'm really looking forward to a project where I can utilize it, because it gives you a lot of power and control over the natural language processing and natural language understanding portion of the whole chatbot interaction with the user. So AWS, like I said, provides really a dizzying array of compelling and useful services to create these creative, unique conversational agents. Even this toy chatbot that I've put together uses a whole bunch of them just to serve it up and to get it working. So there's Lex, which is the framework where you actually define the key components of the chatbot. We'll talk about the vocabulary here in a second. that all relates to Lex. But there's an IDE, so to speak, for building these chatbots. Cognito is for managing identities. If you're just doing a chatbot that doesn't require anybody to sign in, then you just create like a group, basically a group identity as part of the initial setup process for developing your chatbot. Poly is used for converting speech to text. So it's disabled in my chatbot at the moment, but you've probably seen in other chatbots where you can click the little microphone, and then instead of entering in text, you talk and it submits it to the server side, and that's where all the the voice recognition takes place, and then the NLP and NLU. The IAM is AWS's identity and access management. In the way, this is like the most complicated part of AWS, in my opinion, because every action that you take within AWS, where things are done on either your behalf or related to one of your services, they all have to have a role associated with them. Because if security is breached and someone gets into one of your services, you want to contain that as much as possible, and not just give every service in your account access to write from a Lambda, for example. So yeah, for this chatbot, there's identities all over the place for controlling where logs are written, controlling who has access to images, controlling all this stuff. S3, these are just there's called buckets. So S3 is a way just to store just big pools of information, pools of files. The metachat.io, the whole website, as well as all the files that make up the chatbot, are all stored in S3. This is, it's a very interactive, dynamic website, but everything in it is static, which is pretty cool. So this is all JavaScript, but it's all compiled, and there's nothing that really gets run on the fly on the server side. CloudFront is used to once you have your S3 bucket set up and you want to actually serve that to the world, you have to configure all of your publication to the world within CloudFront, and it's really just a way to associate resources with some like URL. And it also handles caching for you, and you can expire resources there and set up all kinds of alarms and cool stuff. The certificate manager is handy if you want to create certificates for your CloudFront resources. And of course, these are probably the most interesting in the context of our discussion: AWS Lambda, DynamoDB, and SNS. So Lambda is really it's really inextricably linked with Lex if you are doing anything of any sophistication at all, because the logic that is required to actually fulfill users' intents is all going to have to be implemented in Lambda. So, for example, with the Raffle bot, after you fill out the form, after you submit all your registration information, excuse me, that information is written to a DynamoDB table, and then we'll take care of picking a winner later on. SNS is used for delivering text messages based on the result of some interaction. So my thing is coded to send a message to me when someone registers. So before we dive into Lex a little bit more, I want to cover some key concepts, because I want to make sure that everyone understands these things before I start using the terms a lot. So any questions at this point? I don't see any. So these are the major concepts: intent, utterance, slot, prompt, and fulfillment. So intents are like the goal that the user is trying to achieve. So for the Raffle chatbot, your intent by using it was to register for the raffle. If you used the chatbot, but you decided once you got in there that you didn't want to register for the raffle, you may have expressed an alternative intent, which is to be shown a puppy instead, in which case a different intent is fired to dynamically go outside to an outside service, not an AWS service, and grab a random puppy image. So an utterance is another concept, which is the spoken or the typed phrase of the user. And this can be, I think, more generally described as the full signal that the user transmits that expresses what it is they want to do. So that signal could come in the voice of characters that they submit to the chatbot, or it could come in the form of a voice clip, or it could come in the form of a rich interaction, such as pressing a button. In the user interface, behind the scenes, what happens is when you press that button, the user interface code actually submits to Lex a text stream. So Lex sees text coming in, but as a chatbot programmer, you can associate whatever text you want with the button, or you could do it dynamically if you want it. Slot, this is kind of akin to a variable or a parameter that the user must provide through their interactions and answers to the chatbot. Again, in the case of the Raffle chatbot, when you registered, you provided the values for several slots, including the first name and your last name, and email and phone. Prompts, these are questions that the bot asks the user in order to actually collect the values from them. So the Raffle bot may ask, what's your first name? And that was a prompt for it to collect the first name slot. Fulfillment, this is the business logic that is required to fulfill the intent after all the slot values have been collected. So it's kind of up to you as the programmer to make sure that your slots are all collected correctly, and then Lex finally says, okay, all the slots are filled. It's time to fulfill. And then we as the programmers are the ones that implement this business logic. And in the example of the Raffle bot, there's fulfillment logic that saves the registration information to the Dynamo database. So let's look at this phrase, which is not in the Raffle chatbot, but can be used to describe these different parts of these different concepts. So the whole thing, if you typed it in or spoke it, that would be the utterance. And I want to book a room for 2 nights on June 3rd. So book a room is the intent. This is what the user wants to do. So we have the utterance, we have the intent, and then we also need the slots, which is for how many nights and beginning on what date, or what's the date for the booking. And this is kind of the goal of the Lex NLU NLP. So let's go over what happens at a kind of a high level there as the request comes in. So in the case of the chatbot, the Raffle bot, I'd like to register for the raffle. You click the button that says, yeah, I like free things. Well, that submits a text that says, I'd like to register for the raffle. So what happens is the UI then submits this phrase to Lex. Lex then initiates the whole NLP, NLU process and performs part of speech tagging and all this stuff in order to, sorry? Would you mind muting whoever just joined? Paranduru, could you please mute? And what was I saying? Okay, so then once Lex has figured out all the different components of the phrase that was submitted by the user, then it like ranks the possible matching intents, and then finally delivers the request to the right intent. It believes that, oh, looks like you want to register for the raffle, and then in the case of an initial interaction with the chatbot, that first name slot would not be filled yet. So Lex would just automatically kind of respond and say, hey, based on what your prompt is that you define for that particular slot, what's your first name? And then you respond and say, oh, my first name is Andrew. And this time, since you're providing a slot value, and in this example that I'm showing on the screen here, this presumes that you filled out all the other slots as well. So you provide Andrew. In this scenario here, all the slots are filled, and the Lambda fulfillment code is run, which saves to the DynamoDB database. And Lex responds with, okay, you're all set. You're ready for the raffle. So this is a screenshot of the Lex intent editor. And this is the raffle bot. So you have, I just have 4 intents. An initial intent, which just in case you need to start over, that's there. It's kind of hidden, but there's the registration intent. There's these sample utterances that you provide. So remember, the utterance is that full phrase that's either spoken or typed in to the UI by the user, or it's triggered and sent by some user interface element. But what happens is you provide in this intent editor a list of sample utterances, and you can provide, I think, thousands of these. And when you build your bot, what happens is Lex does, its magic, does its machine learning on here to build predictive models for when the requests come in, and it uses that information to actually route the request to the right intent. So down here, after you've provided your sample utterances, you then map, if you want, a Lambda function with this intent for initialization and validation. So this function will be used to initialize and validate slots that come in. And then here are all the slots for the Raffle chatbot, first name, last name, etc. And then we define the prompts. These are the slot types, which if you're using Amazon slot types, there's some intelligence behind these, but we're not going to have time to go into that. And then finally, you tell the Lex in this editor, okay, once all the slots are filled and the intent is ready to be fulfilled, then I want you to use this particular Lambda function to actually perform the fulfillment, to actually carry out the saving of the registration in our DynamoDB. So you can see that I've actually specified the same Lambda for both the initialization code as well as the fulfillment code. And that's kind of a design decision that you make as the programmer. I've seen it both ways, where people have separate Lambdas altogether, but you can also just write all the Lambdas for your chatbot, for maybe your intent, I guess. Well, probably for the whole bot, right there in the same Lambda, and then perform routing and intelligence within the Lambda for executing the correct logic. If you're not performing like really elaborate stuff up here in your slots and whatnot, you could just respond with a response card, which, let's see, in the the initial interaction, so if I load this, this is a response card, and it just has, you know, two buttons in it. But you can get really creative with you can't get creative with what is just built into the intent editor, but I'll show you how you can get creative here in a second. And these are just 3 separate messages. You can say you can include emojis in your message, you can include images, you can include video, you can format your messages as Markdown, and furthermore, you can format your messages in any format that you want. And that is probably worth the price of admission here, because that will lead to enormous power on your part to create cool stuff. One technology that wasn't in that big list of AWS technologies that the Rafflebot uses is what I always refer to as the big gift, because I found it right when I needed it, and it's really well built. It's free, it's ready to use, and it's got everything you need for the UI to build amazing chatbots with Lex. And it's part of the whole collection of AWS samples, which is a huge collection of just sample code for working with AWS. But this one's kind of unique in that it's pretty feature complete for example code. And this is all built on Vue.js, which is very similar. Well, actually, that'll start a platform war if I say this, but it's a reactive JavaScript UI development toolkit, and it's kind of like React, but it's on the other hand kind of totally different. So it's equally as powerful, though, in my opinion. And if you know Vue, you can really just jump right into using this. If you don't, it might be worth the time investment to learn it, because as Vue applications go, this is actually a really well-built application. It's not just cobbled together. Coming into this project is kind of like if you're buying a house and you go into a fixer-upper, and it's a real kind of dump on the surface. Well, yeah, it's not impressive on the surface. But you see that like the bones are good, the studs are in place, maybe the floor joists are really high quality, and it's built well. That's what this is, and it's a great foundation to really jumpstart your way to building super unique chatbots. I'll show you here in a second what this relates to. This is a live person, which is it's a totally different company that develops, their own really sophisticated chatbot platform for, call center support or user support. You've probably seen their excuse me, I'm losing my voice. You've probably seen their chatbots on various websites. People buy them and then license them. And they've got third-party integrations with all those different bot vendors that I just mentioned earlier. And if you look closely at this documentation, you can see that they're doing really amazing things with the custom formats that are supported in the Lex messages. So here is a screenshot of the message editor, which I didn't really show you in the intent editor in Lex, but this is kind of what each message editor looks like. And it's just a text box, and you can either specify that it's just a message, meaning it's just simple text, or you can specify custom markup. And if you specify custom markup, you can do whatever you want with that text. So what LivePerson does is they have this really pretty sophisticated set of metadata that they include in their custom markup, and then you can use, if you were to license their chatbots, that you can use to just take that example app here and just add all kinds of amazing features using a similar approach. So let me see if there are any questions. Share the link for the live chat. Okay. Yeah, let me pull that up. It's just developers.liveperson.com, and you can navigate into, I think it's this rich messaging. Is that all the questions? Okay. We're at an hour here, and I promised you an hour. So this is just a snippet from the Lambda that actually displays the puppy image in the Raffle chatbot. So what happens here is, it's a little asynchronous function that goes out and gets a new puppy URL. Down here is where this Lambda, remember I showed you that the Lambda is used both in the fulfillment stage as well as the validation and initialization stage, as well as the fulfillment. It's also used across all the intents in this chatbot. So here's just a simple case statement that routes the logic in this to the correct function to handle the intent. And you can structure your lambdas the same way. This is the DynamoDB tables for that back up the Rafflebot. There's just two. There's a listing of all my raffles, like all what will be in my talks right now. There's just oh, this is the registrations. Okay, so this is just me taking a screenshot. But presumably now I haven't checked it here since this talk started, but hopefully there'll be, have you added any condition to check if anyone added duplicate entries in the chat registration? Well, did you try? Were you able to register twice? Give it a try. I did. So unless it's broken, I mean, I don't work on the thing very often. I just use it for demos. So it's possible that something got busted. But I did add that check. What else to say here? DynamoDB is just super easy to use. And I'm looking forward to doing cool stuff with it in the future. Let me say that most of these technologies are somewhat new to me, and I could probably learn a lot from you all. So if you have creative ways to use these things that I haven't thought of, please let me know. And there's tons of other technologies in AWS that can be used to create really cool chatbots. So I'm going to stop there because we're at an hour and 10 minutes and see if there's any questions. I could show a couple other things too if you want, but I don't want to keep anyone since we promised an hour.
Hey, Andrew, Karen here. Don't worry about hour. We have a 1.5 hour slot reserved for this event, at least.
Okay, great. So we got 20 minutes. Is it Jean? Are you about to? You're muted. There you go.
Yes. Hello. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I'm amazing. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
No, I did not have a question. I thought.
Oh, okay. I thought your camera came on, so I thought you were fixing to ask a question.
The camera have a kind of sensor on it whenever I shake my head. So what I'm gonna do, let me cover that thing. That would help.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
sorry about that.
Sure. Karen, how many people are on the YouTube stream?
As of now, there are, let me check, 14 people in the stream.
14?
Yeah, 14. I posted several times that people can join the Google Meet call directly, and some of them did, but some, and this is like a question of a channel, because for some people it's way more convenient to see and watch this kind of events on YouTube directly for some reason, you know, and probably that's what keeps them there. But anyways, I kept reposting all interesting stuff and all the links to the YouTube as well.
Okay, I haven't looked at it. Are there any questions there?
No, everything is okay there.
Okay, well, let me check the DynamoDB table and see what we got in terms of registrations. What I need to do is add an intent to list the registrants, but that also might make people angry. Their name is displayed. Sorry, I've got 1,000 passwords. Now I always have to look for the right one. The AWS sites are, I mean, I got my Amazon account, my personal Amazon account. I've got my AWS. You create this master account, right, for your organization, and then you create individual developer accounts, because you don't really want to always use your master account or give out your master account, which contains like billing information. I mean, it's the keys to the castle. So what you do is you create these developer accounts, which also have restricted roles and whatnot. So it's always a bit of a chore to get into these things. Quite a few registrations. Okay, cool. Let's go through.
How many registrations?
I got to filter out the previous talk I gave. Count.
And we will make sure, by the way, the person who got who will win the raffle actually should be present at this presentation. So either the person have to be in the Google Meet call or in YouTube call, YouTube stream.
Wow,
We will double check.
Yes, absolutely. I see international phone numbers, which was one hesitation I had, because I didn't actually implement the phone numbers. It uses a Google library to validate the phone numbers, and it wasn't adjusted to accommodate international numbers. So I'm glad to see that it actually got through somehow. It looks like about 30 registrations. So, well, without further ado, if there's no other questions, oh, here's a question. Any recommended material to start with chatbots for starters? From what perspective? Are you wanting to like build so this is one kind of difficult question to answer, because you can use like completely off-the-shelf end-to-end solutions. Like there's some companies that provide like end-to-end solutions. There's, you know, Facebook or Messenger chatbots or Slack chatbots. There's a whole different, you know, set of channels materials if you're building chatbots for Facebook and whatnot. I've never built a chatbot for them because I'm not really interested in Messenger chatbots. I'm more interested in totally custom chatbots. So tell me more. What kind of chatbots you're thinking that you want to build? I've given a lot of leads in this talk to places that I would start. There's some good medium.com groups for chatbots, but it's weird because the landscape is, you know, it's so new, and there's not a whole lot of open source material out there, and there aren't that many end-to-end solutions. And you'll find these projects that claim that they're, you know, a chatbot, but really they're just the back end, and you have to kind of scrounge around to find a front end. Front ends are hard to come by. That's why the AWS Lex sample app is such a gift, is that it's so mature and it's right there for the taking. But it is written in Vue, so if you don't have the Vue skills, you'll have to start there too. But what else? There's some good white papers that provide a really solid overview of chatbots and especially intelligent, so-called intelligent or smart chatbots. Chatbots for dummies. I actually haven't seen that one. Let's see what that is. Oh yeah, it's an article. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of articles like this, but it's really hard to get your head wrapped around. You know what? Why don't I go back to there was that section, or let's do the raffle first. Let's figure out who won the raffle. So I have this super hidden little draw winner thing, and John, that doesn't count. We'll have to redo that.
John Davis won it.
Yeah, you don't know.
You know why I win all these raffles and stuff? Because I have clean living.
Hey, they say charity begins at home.
I told you that it would delete your registration. I didn't delete it. So let's do that again. Okay, let's do this again. Now, is this a real name?
Which one? We don't see anything.
Draconia. Oh, you don't?
No.
Esaya Jacoya just joined.
Oh, I've been sitting here transmitting.
So,
Can you see now?
yeah, something is coming up.
Sorry about that. I was in a different tab. And I will respect the fact that this is the first non-John Davis name that I drew. So let's, is this person here? If so, please post to the chat. If not, I'm going to draw a new winner. Now you got to use your real name.
So Jaconia, if you are in the chat, you have to indicate somehow that you are here. Whoever registered with the name, first name Jaconia, second name Jaconia, what is kind of a little bit strange, but let's see if it's a real person. Maybe it's another bot, you know.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm here. It's me. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Where are you from, by the way?
I'm from South Africa.
Okay, great.
Oh, sorry, I registered my name and same at the same time. Well, I thought I was.
Maybe it's another.
All right, well, you're the winner. So
Yeah,
email me here
Me, thank you.
your shipping information,
Where are you from, by the way?
your mailing address, and I will coordinate with you for getting you.
Oh, sorry, I registered my name and.
Are you? Is this the luckiest day ever in your life that you won an Alexa? All right.
Yeah, I think the person is at the same time in the Google stream, which has some latency. That's why we can hear us ourselves again.
I see.
Yeah. But anyways, now we have a real winner here with a real name and everything. So Isaiah, get in touch with Andrew, or Andrew will get in touch with you, and you will figure out the rest.
Are there any other questions? You're welcome. You too. All right, I'm gonna stop presenting, but John, Karen, if you want to chat about anything.
I was sitting here
Very welcome.
flipping out.
Yeah, it was a great presentation, Andrew. Thank you very much. And I especially liked the fact that you actually made a presentation about this chatbot, which you actually used for this Raffle at the end. It's amazing. Like it's about this exact case, you know.
Yeah, it's a good way to get people thinking about the technology. You know, it it gives them an example that they can kind of use to ground them in the ideas that I'm discussing. So, and you can constantly refer back to it.
Yeah, very cool idea.
Well, if that's it, I appreciate you guys showing up, and
I could do a future session on just the sample, the AWS Lex sample UI code. It would probably consume at least a half an hour or maybe an hour to give you an overview, but it's really cool stuff, and I'm thankful that AWS provides it.
We, for what it's worth, I think we used that sample in one of the AWS labs.
Oh, cool.
When we did the Lex Lab series, that was one of them. And we also, so anyway, next week we'll do Alexa, and we'll do the Alexa skill labs, and then we'll just go from there.
Question, can the interactions be logged? for security, and also what is there to stop the idea from being utilized for evil deeds? Well, yes, all interactions can be logged. In fact, yeah, I mean, it's very easy to log the interactions. I can probably pull up a log. I just don't want to reveal anyone's personal information. My plan was to actually show the console, but then I realized that all my account numbers and stuff would be exposed, as well as people's information. So, but I think that.
Yo. All right. Well, guys, I'm on a part. I really appreciate it. Like I said, this has been more than 4 hours of lessons today. So.
Oh, okay.
Yep. We'll see you next week, and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks a bunch. Right. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Yeah, I can show you what a log would look like. Doesn't look like there's no personally identifiable information in here. Anyway, yes, they can. And what would stop someone from doing evil deeds with it? Well, I mean, the same could be said for any website. Scamming people, you just have to make sure that you're interacting with a reputable source, with a reputable company.
It's almost like, Andrew, it's almost like you could also use Google Forms for evil deeds, you know, like to do something evil.
Yeah,
you can collect information from people all over the world, promising them something, you know, and selling this data. It's almost the same thing, only the bot is a little bit more. There are kind of different questions which it can ask you. It's not as straightforward as a fill-out form.
Yeah, I mean, my focus is healthcare, and when you look at some of the apps that are being used, some of the chatbots, I should say, that are being used in healthcare, like for mental health, just for companionship, for seniors. I mean, the risk for security is just enormous, and for doing kind of evil things with the information. And this isn't an area that I had time to touch on, but I think, you know, security is really the killer app of chatbots. Once people's confidence is really shored up in security, it's going to take off like wildfire. And I think there's some technologies that AWS is developing. Maybe I can do a future talk on them. I haven't used them yet, but because I need a driver for these things, you know. But I think they could really do a great job. They're related to the Internet of Things. So if you look at AWS's Internet of Things initiatives and technologies, there's some really promising stuff coming down the pike. And if you can imagine just like storing your entire personal history locally, not in the cloud, it changes everything.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but these bots are really great stuff because, you know, as I'm thinking, there are so many people as of now and in the past who are trapped in this kind of call center jobs, you know, where they would just sit there, make all these stupid calls, you know. It just, in my opinion, it's a little bit waste of human life if you just do this kind of job. And it can be handled nowadays, I think, and even more in the future by all this kind of bots.
I kind of make this joke that call center agents, this isn't always the case, but they're often basically chatbots implemented with humans.
Yeah.
And they don't do, you know, they've got, you know, an attitude, and they're sometimes, and they're not pleasant as much as chatbots can be even. Again, that's not always the case, but it's a crapshoot. And you get a hold of a call center agent, it may take you 5-10 minutes sitting in the queue if you're lucky. And then you get to that agent, and they don't have the information that you need because their universe of knowledge is potentially less than indexing some domain-specific collection of documents that the organization has, and could easily stand up an FAQ chatbot to answer questions. So it's kind of ironic, actually, that these people are employed to do things that are really, like you said, Karen, it's just so mechanical and yeah.
And that's what you mentioned, Andrew, that this actually with this chatbots, you can scale them. It's like a computing instance, if you have an incoming call, like a hundredth call, you can just spin up like hundreds instance of this bot and process it. With call centers, you always will have limited capacity of people whom you hire, and there will be peak hours and there will be like quiet hours,
Yeah, that's the other thing, is that chatbots provide 24-hour access to information, and people are getting more savvy with them. They know that they're not going to answer the meaning of life, but they may allow you to make an appointment for a healthcare condition in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. And what kind of peace of mind does that provide you, that you have an appointment for the next day to address your serious condition? I've been in that situation, and I'm action oriented, right? I want to get things done. I want to solve them right now. If I have to wait until the morning to call the place and maybe make an appointment or talk to someone to get a sense of if they can actually help me solve my problem, that's torture. So if I can actually make an appointment right then, and that interaction is satisfying, it builds trust, that's huge.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great. Andrew, I heard in recent years, I have heard a couple of times, even much more, than people keep saying that there's a whole bunch of new opportunities with this bots in general, and then there's new markets where you can just do business, new kinds of businesses. Can you just shed a little bit of light? What are we talking here about? Like, where, as an entrepreneur and developer, where would you seek for opportunity to kind of discover new markets, new ways to process information with these chatbots?
Just look in your own life. Look at the complexities in your life. What would streamline your life? What things are delaying you from getting what you need, whether it's healthcare or if it's access to I don't know, your bank. I mean, as banal as a bank, but it really just runs the gamut. And I've seen just statistics from Gartner that like by 2024, like 60-70% of businesses will have a chatbot, but they may have more than one chatbot, especially because the technology is not yet there for them to have one chatbot. That's more along the lines of like a smart or like a general AI. You can't just have one chatbot. You're gonna have these domain-specific bots that know about one area really well. And so, yeah, just look around. There's a lot of crappy chatbots. So you could just be in the business of improving what exists. For a long time, I would just pull up a website and the thing would pop up in the bottom right-hand corner. I'd just dismiss it because I'd used them and they weren't very good. Or they'll spit out paragraphs upon paragraphs of text, and it's overwhelming. So to be, and I touched on this idea of empathy, to be that developer that possesses that empathy, that can really direct the production of these bots that display a sense of nuance, nuanced interactions. I think it'd be really valuable in pretty much any sector of the economy, in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
I see it so many times, as you just mentioned, that there is in the top right corner, most of the times you would see this kind of button where you can, it will, in most of the cases, it will even like start talking to you in a text way, you know, there will be some kind of ping and you will see there's a message and they will ask you something like what are you looking for or whatever. What I have never dealt with this kind of stuff, and I don't know actually any platforms which are providing this kind of stuff. But it would be interesting if we will install it, for example, on one of our websites, like to see how many people will actually use it and what kind of use they will get out of it. It would be really interesting to experiment with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, and I haven't done any of this yet, but I'm thinking about just ways to get people engaged with them in surprising ways, because I feel like there's a bit of blindness now to the thing in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm not sure I like when they just pop up and start talking to me. It feels a little obtrusive.
Yeah.
I want them to wait until I need something.
Yeah, imagine it would be somehow it would be a kind of standard or protocol which can be embedded into your website, and once you just approach a website, you would discover in the HTML text somewhere there that this site actually supports also chatbot interface. It would be similar as RSS, for example, you know, like there are websites who would provide feeds additionally to the page itself, but it's not visible on the page most of the times. If you are lucky, you will probably have a hint from your browser that it supports, or you can just feed this website URL to your RSS reader and you will get information. Imagine that, because I can think of people who would not even prefer to interact with the website, but just you talk to your chatbot or things there.
Yeah, I think that's coming. There are technologies in the works similar to like SVG, like standards, to embed voice support right in browsers. They're very mature. I mean, they're alpha stage, but people are thinking about this, and it's to be, you know, very easy in the future to add voice support to your website. And then you kind of get into this thing that I was describing earlier, where you're interacting with, you know, your I don't know, your local pharmacy, and you're maintaining this relationship with them through their website, and then through their phone app, and then through on and on. And they're kind of just in your life. You know, they're always, you say, Alexa or whoever the digital assistant will be in 15 years, refill my, you know, prescription. And it gets fulfilled. Be more complex than that, but you get the idea. Like, you can trigger it from any number of different channels. I mean, this is happening already, but it's just the handoffs are clunky. But Apple is doing interesting stuff kind of quietly with the AirPods, where they seamlessly change, almost seamlessly. Well, they will change, you know, from being interacting with your, you know, synced to your computer, and then you lose range with your machine, and then they go to your phone, and that kind of happens pretty transparently. And I can see AirPods being a new platform. That's probably where they're going. Apple doesn't make big, huge innovations anymore. They make these small innovations that no one notices happening, but they're actually happening. For example, for healthcare, they have, in their newest revision of the watch, they have the ability to monitor, I think it's oxygen level in the blood. And you can buy these things off the shelf, but to have it right there on your watch, imagine the kind of interactions that could trigger if you're sleeping, and your oxygen level declines. You know, it triggers a message to your doctor, triggers a message to your family that call you, or you know, a chatbot, whatever. You can imagine all these conversational agents being triggered from these sensors in our environment.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And I think at the end of the day, this chatbots, whether text chatbots or voice bots, I think at the end of the day, they will be integrated in this kind of robots, humanoid robots probably, which we will get at some point, which are not very sophisticated yet in most of the times. But, you know, there were times when the electric cars were also very short range and very golf car looking. Nowadays, it just kicks asses of all the muscle cars like from years ago. So we will get there definitely. And this technology, it's amazing to see how this voice technology is developing itself. Also the bots now. At the end, they will kind of merge everything into one, or they will also exist like separately if you need it. But imagine a robot, a real robot talking to you, your home assistant, you know, it would be just amazing.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's all kind of kludgy right now and weird, but you can see it coming together.
Absolutely. It just also, in many cases, it just takes one visionary person like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, you know, who will also put it in their head and will actually get it, you know, in a kind of foreseeable time, not in like decades, but maybe just in 5 years or 7 years, whatever. Would be amazing. I'm looking forward to have a robot here in my in my place who will also, like as you said, like take off from me all this routine stuff which everyone have to do at home, or you know, just I don't know, like there are plenty of stuff which can be automated.
True. It's amazing what happens to your brain when you can have something be taken care of for at the minutia. I mean, I think just my own personal philosophy is there is value in doing some repetitive things. Like if you can be mindful about them and I guess somehow derive meaning from them. But on the other hand, when you got stuff to do, to free up that time to have creative thoughts, to do whatever it is you want to do with your life that's unique, that is a gift.
Have you heard of this app which is gaining kind of popularity last years, a couple of years? It's called Replica.
Replica?
It's
yeah.
Yeah.
It was really there's like hundreds of thousands of downloads as a result of COVID. It's kind of a mental health thing, right? So it's this companionship, and people are very kind of forgiving of its kludginess. I mean, that it'll say it'll get things wrong and it'll screw up sentences, but people are forgiving of it because they kind of develop a bond with it. There's a big article about it in the New York Times, which is really interesting. Just search for New York Times and replica. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just also, you know, exactly what we were talking about. In the future there will be robots which will just assist us, and you would just put this kind of algo what was developed for Replica. I mean, it's a very basic one, yeah, but it's already advanced, like comparing the previous solutions which we had. Like even it was not a like kind of completed concept before. I don't think there were really an application which everyone used as a kind of your assistant or whatever. But with this Replica, we have actually a case which like where people are using this app and designing their own assistant or whatever. Like many people and it's interesting, like using it for love affairs, you know, like I couldn't think of it, but apparently, like many people they have some demand in this kind of field, and yeah, it's just absolutely mind blowing. Not that this solution is so great, you know. I tried it out. It's just a little bit annoying after one day.
Yeah,
but
I haven't tried it. I don't know. I like actual human interactions, but
in my case, I just like new things. You know, if there is something new, what is gaining attention of like people, I will definitely go and try it out, and especially if it's for free, and it's available, like as a basic tier is available for free. They have a kind of business model on top of it, but also interesting how this thing came into life. Actually, there are interviews of this woman who is one of the co-founders of this replica, the company, and she actually lost a very close friend of her. But and they were very connected, and she was missing this guy, like really, and there were like thousands, I think thousands of messages which they wrote to each other, and she's an AI person, so she was already into artificial intelligence stuff before, I think so. And she just collected all this information which she had from their conversations, and she just fed everything to a bot which she created, kind of. And it was a kind of virtual representation of this person. And then everyone from her like friends who also knew this deceased guy, they also shared their messages with her, which they were talking to this, like writing to each other with this now dead person. And she also like kind of completed this whole information with this additional messages, and it just only made this whole algorithm very much sophisticated and very accurate. Also, like it just behaved in a very similar way as this person would behave. It was just pretty amazing story, also, you know.
I'm gonna look that up. That sounds. I mean, that
just
wow,
yeah.
like what I was saying. Look in your life.
Right.
So
it's her on the internet. It's just amazing to not to read, but to listen to her story, how she tells it. It's really interesting.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I'll look that up.
Yeah. And then, you know, we call also, it kind of also invokes these ideas, like if once people will just fade away, they will just at some point they will leave this world, you know. And there are ideas like how would it be possible kind of to scan the brain, or like what behavior of a person, and transfer it into kind of world of bits. I don't know. I mean, just all in all, why not? It could be also like a separate like industry where people would retain their replicas of their loved ones, you know, in the form of in a virtual world. And once we get there, it's just all crazy number of things which you could imagine what can be done. And you have to be really careful, because some things will not be even ethical, you know. You can do like absolutely crazy things as well.
Yeah, I love this stuff. It gets me so excited. Yeah, I think there's a huge market for that kind of themed bot like for especially like elderly patients, you know, like elder care where they're missing loved ones, and you know, it's not that they won't know it's not the real I mean, it's a suspension of disbelief. Like they can it's good. It's almost good enough. It can be comforting, and therefore helpful to have this kind of semblance of that person in your life still, and to be able to interact with. I mean, that's my sense of it anyway, though.
Yeah, and with all these bots which we experience now in the recent years, I think these technologies are slowly opening the door into this whole new world which can be explored, you know, because we are getting this kind of bits of technologies together, like artificial intelligence, text processing, voice processing. It's somehow it's coming together right now, and it will be even more so in the future. Which, you know, to create new innovating stuff and use cases, you would just, in many cases, would put different technologies together in a kind of creative way and mix them. It's a kind of like a recipe how you cook your food, right?
That's why like AWS platform and these other cloud platforms are so crazy exciting. And I did a lot with web services back in the day when they were all like XML and SOAP based, and there was this fantasy that you'd have these big registries of web services, and they would, you know, kind of like dynamically look up services to fulfill requests of a certain kind of interface and all this. It's interesting that all that like died, but it's being replaced, like the same, that spirit is being fulfilled in these cloud platforms, and then by like pulling in like my Raffle bot, it pulls in, you know, a service to fetch a puppy image, and that's just an example though of doing what you're saying, like stitching together all these things on the web in creative unique ways that can just create these new experiences for people. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna have to shut down here, but it's been a real pleasure, and I've really enjoyed the post conversation, Karen. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, I just shared also one YouTube link where everyone want to go if you're interested in this story of the creation of this replica application, and the company actually also. Lex Friedman took recently interview of this woman who actually co-founded the company, and this is like pretty amazing, like the whole story, and I'm eager to see where it goes. I think also, as you mentioned, Andrew, unfortunately, nowadays there are not too many open source frameworks for this kind of stuff. You know, I could imagine like to have Alexa, something like Alexa, but the kind of on a completely open source basis, you know, which would not even send the data outside of my vicinity of my home. It would be just amazing, you know, because still you are kind of dependent on this connectivity, and there are all these stories, you know, that Alexa is listening, like spying on you, like especially in Germany, people a little bit more paranoid than usual. And yeah, in this case, you would just you would have a home even without internet connection, and you would still be able to use, then you can actually better integrate it into your smart home. If you don't want to have internet whatsoever at your home, you know, but you want to have kind of home automation in place.
Yeah. If you look at AWS Snowcone, and I think it's called Greengrass, they're technologies that are poised to kind of things to what you're describing.
No, yeah, Greengrass, right?
It just, I believe that's the name.
Yeah,
I haven't used.
I heard it many times. It's something on edge, so basically you would keep it locally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So, all right, y'all. Have a great rest of your day. Or I guess you're pretty late there now, aren't you? What time is it?
Yeah, in Germany it's almost 9 p.m. It's Sunday here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it's a great time, and yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. It was a really interesting conversation. We streamed everything. It will be available at all times, also on our YouTube channel. And yeah, we're looking forward to any future events with you.
A conference. What's that conference?
What kind of conference?
When we were chatting a couple weeks ago, you mentioned some conference that either the Cloud Study Network or I'm not sure what.
Well, in our community, we constantly participate at different conferences, which are mostly organized by some companies. Like just this week, we had 2 or 3 conferences. One was Microsoft Ignite. Another one was by PagerDuty. It was a summit actually, and another one was a big one by CloudBees, and it was with a lot of topics on CI/CD, Jenkins, and two of them, like, you have amazing goodies which you can get there on top of the conference and talks, where like in two conferences you would get free certifications, like a certification voucher which you can redeem to just try their certification for free. One was for Jenkins, another one was proprietary PagerDuty certification. And at Microsoft Ignite, they were offering their cloud certifications actually. So once you pass a track, like learning track, you can get one exam for free. And it could be any of their, like from their whole portfolio of the exams, which is pretty amazing. And there are conferences coming up in the like almost on a weekly basis, you know.
They're all probably virtual right now, right?
Yeah, they're virtual, and it's a beauty of having it. Like everyone can attend, because I found it very like pity that there would be some conference somewhere in Seattle, somewhere, I don't know, like on the other part of the world. Yeah. Also here, even in Europe, in Amsterdam, I don't want to go like to Amsterdam, like across this 500 kilometers or even more, just for a conference, you know, for one day. There are advantages. You will meet amazing people. You will have a personal contact and exchange with people, but it's always limiting, you know. You don't always have this time. You don't always want to spend like this hundreds of euros or dollars of money for this attendance. And yeah, nowadays this COVID also kind of enables this stuff that we can participate digitally. This is how we actually taking part at your presentation today.
Yeah, it's a great time, except for COVID.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, thank you, Andrew, again, and thank you everyone for taking part.
So if you want, you know, for talks, so we'll chat more in the coming weeks to see where I could whip up some new stuff.
Absolutely. And else, it's also a message to everyone else. If you have any ideas, any idea of presentation, feel free to reach out, either to me, John, Andrew, all the organizers, co-organizers. We are really, we would be happy to provide you our platform for this kind of presentations.
All right, so long, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Take care.